Technically, it's not a new policy. I think by nature of these being public meetings, the expectation is that the agenda packet include all the materials that are going to be presented and discussed. And so there's nothing new here. What I would say is that there have been, just by nature of staffing issues in various meetings, there have been a number of times, whether ORJ has staffed a meeting or somebody else has staffed it, where there have been presentations that were made on materials that were not in the agenda packet. And that is not in line with county guidelines for presenting the materials. So it is a bit of, I realize, a task to ask a presenter to have materials ready for us essentially a week before the presentation. So Jasmine, kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. But that's our guidelines. And again, it's not new. It's just that we have allowed that to fall by the wayside a bit. And we've been called out on it. So just to let you know that we're stepping up our game here at ORJ.
Thank you, Denise. So again, we're only going to have the one presentation because Rise was quick enough to be able to give their presentation to us in order to get the agenda out on time. So I know the police department, Richmond Police Department, and the DA's office and probation were also going to present. And so those of us that were going to present should have our materials ready and in before we need to publish the agenda for next month.
And just for the record, this will be probation's second time presenting on diversion, because myself and Director Randall did it at a prior meeting.
Thank you, Melvin.
So I have a quick follow-up question then. I was going to have someone from my office present at the next meeting about the adult mental health diversion. Does that now need to be put off to a different meeting, or is there time for that as well?
There's time for that as well.
Okay. And the material should be to go to Denise a week ahead of time? You're on mute.
You're mute.
Thank you, Robin. Preferably to Nicole. She's pulling
Okay.
together all the packages and posting them. So it would be great if they could go to her, please.
Okay. Maybe you should send out an email, or someone should send out an email to everyone to remind us of that, so we can. That'd be great.
You can do that.
Thank you.
All right, then we will turn it over to Rise for their presentation. Jasmine.
Okay, let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, perfect. So hi, everyone. My name, again, is Jasmine Fry, and I'm the Youth Justice Program Manager at RISE. And today I'm going to be discussing with you all about our Restore program, which is our Restorative Justice Diversion Partnership with the Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office. And just so you all are able to understand what that acronym is, Restore stands for Repairing Harm, Elevating Voices, Supporting Communities, Transforming Lives, Opening Minds, and Restoring Justice. Okay, so I want to include an anecdotal here, and this is one of our quotes from our Restorative Justice Diversion participant. So the quote reads, let me move you all up here. As a kid who struggles in school, especially having to grasp virtual learning, my case manager gave me the resources I needed to feel more confident. I had the opportunity to not only have support with virtual learning, but most important, fix a mistake. I didn't realize or know restorative justice diversion existed, and I am grateful I have the opportunity to right my wrongs. As a youth who is also in a group home, I now have RISE as my family that I know will be there, even though I completed the program, they still support me. And again, this is from one of our restorative justice participants, and the age of this young person was or is 16. So I'm going to give you all a little bit of background about RISE. And just so to be clear, a few of you, I believe, were on the other presentation that Andrea and I did a few months back. And so this presentation will be slightly different because I will be giving you more background about RISE and then also really giving you the framing that and how we support young people at RISE Center. So it's not going to be the higher level district attorney framing around like how do they refer the cases to us. It's going to be really like the programmatic level in terms of how do we support the young people at RISE. Just wanted to note that for you all. So RISE Youth Center, a lot of you know about us, but I wanted to give you all a framing for those who do not. Who we are, we create safe spaces grounded in social justice that build youth power for young people to love, learn, educate, heal, and transform the lives and communities. When did we open? We opened fall 2008. We're still going super strong. Born from youth organizing, built on youth, adult, and cross-sector partnerships. And we created to address acute and structural violence. And a lot of the partnerships that we have is definitely trauma-informed with our partnerships with Probation and then also John Muir Hospital. And then just giving you some more framing around the youth leadership. So we do have certain departments at RISE Center that support youth leadership. So we have community health, we have media, art, and culture, we have youth justice, and then education and career success. And so I'm going to be now talking about the integrative model and how we are able to do this work around youth leadership. So we are all right doors. We are systems change focused and values driven. We are definitely critical responders to acute incidents of violence. And then lastly, convener of trauma and healing learning communities. So these are all the ways in which RISE staff members come together to really support young people in the Richmond community. Okay, so now I'm going to be giving you a lovely video that was created a few years ago. And I do want to name that some of you might know, some of you don't know, we will be moving into a new building super soon. So we will have another video that reflects the new building and really what that new building is going to mean to our community and our young people at the RISE Youth Center.
When I'm inside of the RISE, I just feel really safe and comfortable.
There's a place where you can just come and like not have to deal with stuff that's happening out the street or like violence in the community.
It's a happy environment. Everybody's nice to everybody. It's all love.
Everybody here is positive. Everybody's so creative here. Being around that type of stuff, especially younger people that's creative, makes you want to be more creative.
We get so many different people from so many different like walks of life and so many different experiences coming to one space.
I wanted to rap, record music, and have my own CD and everything. RISE has actually made it a reality.
I do film, so I always ask people for advice that do film here. You should come here to do something that you're not doing at home.
Yeah, I started off really bad. And once I started coming to RISE, they helped me with school, they helped me with my career. They gave me a place to be where I feel like I could belong.
Everything here, we take in a restorative justice approach. They don't look at you for what you've done in the past or anything like that.
I became an intern, so that kind of changed the way I was in school. I started getting my grades up by going to just doing homework and making it a career plan.
We have a youth organizing club where a whole bunch of youth from the center or from the community can come together and pitch campaigns on how they want to change whatever it is in the community.
RISE's goal is to empower youth to make a change.
I ultimately believe RISE is here to expand young people's minds and show them what else the world has to offer.
People should come to RISE because there's something for everybody at RISE. I feel like there's a space for every single person in the community to be able to get something out of RISE.
RISE has so many things it can teach you. It can give you so many different jewels.
RISE definitely helped me realize that I could actually do something, that I could accomplish what I had in my mind.
Awesome. So that video, as you know, the pandemic has hit. all of us and really affected all of our communities. And so even though we are virtual, we are still able to support young people in these different areas that you just saw in this video. Do the next slide. All right. So let me get this. So I say it about who RISE is and what we do. And so RISE, I really want to reiterate this. RISE is a home. We are a center. We are a beloved community, and we are a movement. And the different sectors and what we provide for young people is sanctuary and safe space, opportunities for young people to connect, heal, learn, and lead. And then programs, these are the programs that I listed before earlier, and I'm going to restate them: community health, youth leadership, media, arts and culture, education and justice. And the last one is trauma response and triage. Now, why we are here today is our Restore and Restorative Justice program. So again, what Restore means is repairing harm, elevating voices, supporting communities, transforming lives, opening minds, and restoring justice. So what is restorative practices? Restorative practices are a part of a continuum of creating and maintaining and repairing relationships. Restorative justice focuses on the aspect of restoring relationships and emphasizes that we are all more than the worst harm we've created. Restorative justice focuses on identifying, addressing, and meeting unmet needs, and believes all people are able to change and learn from their behavior. And just so to note, our Restorative Justice Diversion program, and another framing folks use, is RJD. I will not be giving you the acronym. I'm going to make sure I always say Restorative Justice Diversion. This is a juvenile program, so 18 and below. So our restore process. So the first process is the referral. And this is when a youth comes in contact with law enforcement. And if the youth meets a criteria, and if you have questions about criteria, we can talk later about that because it's a list of things. The RISE receives a referral from the district attorney's office. So that's the first process. So once we receive the case from the DA, as long as they meet the criteria, we then go into the relationship building and reviewing of goals. So we have to make sure after receiving the referral, we call the young person and the family to make sure that they agree in participating in the program. This is voluntary. We do not say you have to do this. This is like, we give everyone the resources. We tell them what the program is, how it will be beneficial, but it is up to the family and the youth if this is going to be a good fit for them. So if it's everyone's on board, we then are focusing on youth completes a Let's Get Free plan to determine the needs. And so a lot of our case managers at the RISE Center, we all use a Let's Get Free plan. And this is able for us to form better relationships with the young person and also have the ability for young people to see like what are some things that they might need help for. So some of the areas that are in that Let's Get Free plan is educational, job, and also some personal goals. I have seen recently with RJD clients, they have been saying like, hey, one of my goals is I do want to have a better relationship with my mom. My mom doesn't trust me since this incident happened. And so this restore process is really not only for the person harmed, but also how do we make sure the young person is engaged with their community and also more engaged with their family as well. And so the next process, phase of that process is the preparation. So once the young person and the case manager is able to go over the Let's Get Free plan, we are really acknowledging like what happened. Like we are talking deeply, like what happened that day? What even happened before then to lead you to that incident that happened where you impacted someone. And so the youth acknowledges the harm they caused and writes an accountability letter. Before it was called an apology letter, but we wanted to make sure it's really about accountability. Like how am I as a young person being accountable to what happened with that situation that I impacted someone and my family and ultimately myself as well. the person harmed is contacted to participate in the restorative conference. So after we feel like the young person is being accountable, is forming a good relationship, not only with themselves, but their community and also their family, then we are able to make an assessment that this is a good time for us to call the person harmed to see what was the impact. How are you feeling now? It's really like, what are your needs, right? So yes, we might have a list of things that we want to be able to talk about with the person harmed, but it's really about what does that person harmed need? What is going to make it right for them? And so we discuss that with the person harmed in hopes that with talking about the restore and the restorative justice diversion process, that they are willing to participate in the conference, which I'm going to talk about in the next slides. So another part of the preparation is the person harmed is prepped for the meeting if the person harmed is agreeing that, you know what, yes, I want to be able to talk to that young person and let them know that it really impacted me. Like, my laptop, it was stolen. And now I had to buy another laptop and I had to tell my job that I don't have the work that I needed for the day. That's an example of what the impact can look like. And so a lot of the times a person harmed does want to be able to relate to that young person. We've had a person harmed recently that I'm working with right now around like, I just want the young person to know, like, I understand, right? I am from the same community that they were from, and I want to be able to help them and potentially mentor them. And you don't get that a lot for person harmed, but you do see a few cases where the person harmed does want to be able to connect with that young person. So a few of the other questions is, what if the youth can't fulfill what the person harmed wants? So there are times where the person harmed is like, I want the young person to do this. I want the person to maybe do community service hours. And the question a lot that we have been asked is, what if the youth can't? And it is really about how are we coming together as a community to talk about that plan. So after conference, that young person will be able to have a plan that lists the 4 parts of harm. And the 4 parts of harm are self, family, person harmed, and then community. And in that conference, if the whole community and everyone at the table is like, you know what, I don't think that's really realistic for that young person to complete in 4 months, then everyone is able to come up with an agreement like, hey, how about we, instead of having 50 community service hours, how about we say 2 or 3 at a place where you might know someone where you feel like you can maybe mentor them or see what they're doing. And then even for reflection part is, can that young person even potentially write a 1-page paragraph or 1-page essay around what they learned and why that experience really helped them in that moment think about the harm that they caused. So it's really about, if a plan is like, that's a little too much, how are we coming together to make sure that that plan is able to be completed? And also for that young person to really be able to be like, I'm accountable to this. Like, it's overwhelming for a young person to have 20 things, but how can we do a condensed amount of an actionable plan where that young person is really feeling upheld by the community and really being able to be like, I can be reflective in this moment. And that's what that process is really about. How are we all being reflective in this process? And so I'm talking about a lot of these parts already, just because I've been doing the work for a while now. And so after the young person has the plan, the goal is for the case manager to be able to check in with them on a weekly basis. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to have this plan, I'm not going to have any support. That community member, that family member, also the case manager, they are really there to support and guide that young person throughout their plan. So they are having one-on-one case management still, even to complete their plan. Next slide. Okay, so this is what the conference looks like. It's a circle because it is really about how are we thinking about ourselves and healing as a whole. So these are the 4 people or the few people that are involved. So we have the responsible youth, We have the responsible youth support person, and that could be a family member. Sometimes we have young people that are actually in foster care and don't have a family member, but they do have a support person that they do want to make sure that they are there to support them with this plan. We have the facilitator, which is also the case manager. We call the restorative justice practitioner. And then we have a community member. We have the person harmed. And then we have a person harmed support person. And this is only if the person harmed is fearful and feeling like, I don't think I can really sit there by myself with that young person and their family. And so sometimes the person harmed wants someone to be there, but sometimes they don't. It just depends. And it's really about, like I said before, the needs of the person harmed. What are their needs in that moment? And then again, we have a facilitator. At times, we do have a co-facilitator if the conference is, the case that we have is super heavy and we feel that it would be best to have 2 facilitators there to really manage the room, we will have another facilitator. And then the caregiver. So the responsible youth, like I said, can have a support person and then also their caregiver as well, depending on the family dynamic, because every family dynamic that we've noticed has been very, very, very different. And so meeting all the parties. So the circle keepers meet with each party multiple times over a few months before the final meeting to ensure everyone is prepared for the conference. So there is a whole prep process before we get to conference. The young person is prepped, the person harmed is prepped, the person harmed support person is prepped, the community member is prepped, and even the responsible youth support person is prepped. So every single person before conference is prepped in order to think about, this is what the conference will look like, this is what the agenda will look like. And yes, we cannot say, well, this is gonna happen, because we want it to be as authentic as possible. But we do wanna make sure that everyone is aware of who's going to be in the room for the safety of everyone, specifically the person harmed. The accountability letter. So the responsible youth arrives at the conference with a prepared letter where they take accountability for their actions. So that young person is reading their accountability that they work months on. This is not just, I'm going to write a letter real quick and be done. It is super thoughtful. They are talking about the impact. They're talking about why it impacted not only the person harmed, but themselves, their family, and the community. And they really are gaining insight to why it happened. And then the next part of conference is what happened. So everyone in the circle is able to tell what happened in their own perspective. And then the impact. All participants are able to name the impact or event the crime had on them. So that means that the person harmed, the community member, are talking about how it impacted them and how it impacts the community, so that that young person's able to see, this is not only affecting you, it's affecting a whole lot of people. And then the agreement, and that's the part I talked about, the plan. So collaboratively, the group creates an agreement for the responsible youth to complete. So if there is 50 things that the person harmed wants them to complete, everyone collaborate, talks about, well, how do we make sure this young person is being accountable, but also making sure that this is a SMART plan. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and timely. And everyone is prepped before conference on what that means and how we can make sure in conference that it is actually a SMART plan. And then plan completion. The restorative practitioner specialists and those involved in the agreement assist the responsible youth to make sure it is completed. So like I said, that SMART plan is really, really important for everyone to understand. It needs to be timely. We can't have a plan where it's going to take a year for them to complete. Yes, RISE is always going to support youth, even after plan completion, but we wanted to make sure it is relatable to the impact that it caused on the community and on the person harmed. And then next slide. So Restore, we have been going very strong since COVID-19. Shifts to restorative justice diversion, we have been doing virtual enrollment. We have DocuSign and Google Forms, and we also have been doing virtual case management. And some of you might be thinking, how is it going? And it's actually going really great. We have noticed that FaceTime and Zoom and other forms of virtual communication has really been effective with the young people. They want to see who is supporting them. Is that person really going to be able to relate to me? And we noticed that the young folks really have enjoyed the FaceTime. A lot of them are having some trouble with Zoom, and even the Zoom fatigue is real. And we try our best to make sure we are FaceTiming, we are doing Zoom as much as possible to make sure we are building and bridging community with that young person, because we can't be in person. And on the phone, you can't see the emotions of someone. And it's really hard for us to relate to young folks when we're only doing phone calls. And then restorative, virtual conferencing, all of them have been via Zoom, and it's been going great. We've been able to prep everyone as best as we can, and also ensure that everyone is safe, right? And making sure that we know what everyone's needs are. So our virtual conferences have been amazing. Yes, young people are, like I said, Zoom fatigue. And also they have been taking their cases very seriously because they understand that I made this choice. I voluntarily am involving myself in this program. And so they're doing everything they can to make sure that they are meeting the needs of the person harmed and of the community as well. And then next slide. And then that's it. So thank you so much. There might be some questions. I hope I can answer them. If not, we have Stephanie on the call, but let me know if you all have any questions or concerns that you might want to uplift.
Thank you, Jasmine. Are there any questions?
I have a couple. First of all, could you stop sharing your screen?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. So you had mentioned the criteria for a referral. Just curious what the criteria are. I got the vibe that that's going to be a lot of information, but I think that's pretty relevant to this group and trying to figure out what criteria can look like and how it might be changed to be more equitable if necessary.
Yeah, for sure. I assumed someone was going to ask it, so I actually brought it up on my phone. So the referral criteria, case specification, if restorative justice diversion did not exist, the DA will absolutely not charge this case. This is a identifiable person harmed. There is no serious physical injury to the person harmed. No firearm was used. The offense is not listed in 707B. The person harmed does not oppose restore as an acceptable alternative to charging. And then this is not vandalism, shoplifting, or graffiti case. And then a few other factors is given limited resources at this time, youth must reside in Richmond or surrounding areas, Pittsburgh or Antioch. The next one is the youth must be 12 to 17 at the time of charging. And then the youth must not have any pending or active cases. And then there's two more. The youth must not presently be on probation. And then the last one, the youth must agree to participate and complete the program. Yeah.
Is it okay? Is it okay to speak now? I'm sorry. I'm Stephanie. Is it okay to speak right now? Oh, okay. I haven't done Zoom very much. I've just taken some Spanish classes, and I found out about the meeting because I went to a demonstration on Sunday regarding the killing of Tyrell Wilson. So I'm trying to get more involved in things that are going on and being in places to speak up about that. I guess I just want to say this is a very impressive program. I taught middle school for about 12 years, and I've done a SEEDS training in Berkeley, and that talked a lot about restorative justice. And it just sounds like an amazing center, and it's very impressive, very impressive. I'm glad I got on the call. It was kind of random, and it just sounds like a excellent program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. For in the future, I'll ask you to speak during the public
Okay.
comment section of it.
Yeah,
But
so
thank you.
how does, okay, so there, okay, and this is
So
all
first-
experience for me. Okay, so is that, you just wait then until somebody says, okay,
So after each subject that we talk about, we'll have a public comment section. And then
Okay.
that's when you'll be allowed to.
and it's okay to speak at that time, or is it better to write it out?
No, I'll call for public comment and that's when I'll allow
Okay.
anyone.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Chris, did you have additional questions?
Yeah, so I'm sorry to do this. Could you, that is a long list. Would you mind going down that list one more time?
Of course, yeah, and I can also email it, or Stephanie can. Yeah, I can read it again. Want me to read it again? Okay.
Yeah, both and.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so case-specific factors. If RJ, restorative justice diversion, did not exist, I will absolutely not charge this case. Okay, there is an identifiable person harmed. There is no serious physical injury to the person harmed. No firearm was used. The offense is not listed in 707B. The person harmed does not oppose to the Restore program as an acceptable alternatives to charging. And then this is not a vandalism, shoplifting, or graffiti case. And then the next item I'm going to use is factors specific to youth. Okay, so the first one, given limited resources, at this time, the youth must reside in Richmond or surrounding areas, Pittsburgh or Antioch. The youth must be 12 to 17 at the time of charging. The youth must not have any pending active cases. The youth must not presently be on probation. And then the last one, the youth must agree to participate and complete the Restore program.
Thank you.
Hey, Jasmine, I have a quick question. Great job, by the way. This was awesome.
Thanks, Karen.
So of the case-specific factors, my curiosity is, it sounds like we're dealing with both felonies and misdemeanors. Has that been your experience going?
Yes, higher level misdemeanors, yep, lower level felonies, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I had another question. So when you talked about, this being sort of optional and, youth and caregivers needing to agree, I'm curious if you have experienced youth or caregivers refusing the program and what sort of the most common reasons for that is, if it happens.
It definitely has happened a few times. So there have been recently some cases to where the youth and parent are upset that they're even getting a call from us regarding this case because they don't believe that they were in the wrong, which is the kid, and the kid didn't do it. So that has been a conversation with at least maybe like 3 cases that we've received this year and last year that, no, my kid didn't do it. No, I'm gonna fight it in court. No, didn't do it. Even though there has been blatant, facts around what happened. And I noticed with talking to a family recently that they said they don't want to do the program because I didn't do it. When I had another conversation, because we usually give them a waiting period. Like we tell them about the program, and if they're like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't do it. No, he didn't do it. It was all this other kid. We give them like, okay, we will call you in a week and you let me know like how you're feeling. So in that week span, I have noticed that the young person in the family come around. They're like, you know what? I actually did do it. I didn't want to tell my mom. I told my mom a complete lie about what happened. And so actually, since we will have to send the case back. And we're clear about that. If you don't want to participate, we will have to send the case back. And we don't know what's going to happen. We can't give them legal advice, right? We give them resources that they might need, but we can't give them legal advice. So we say, we're going to send your case back. And so we have noticed a shift with giving that week time to think about it, that the young person comes around and like, you know what, I didn't do it. I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't tell you the truth, but actually I do want to do this program. So that has been one scenario. Another scenario has been no, didn't do it. And so we will have to send the case back. And that has happened for the young person and the family, very upset about these charges, and they don't want to do the program. They don't want to. They don't, and we're not going to force anyone at all to join this program because when that happens, it's not very successful when you're trying to force a young person to contact you and talk about the impact. It's really like, how are you being accountable? And so we will have to send the case back when the youth and the family are like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't care what you tell me. We're not doing it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Hope that answers your question.
Jasmine, do you have any data about how, I know the program started, about 2 years ago now? How many people have gone through and successfully completed?
I'm on mute. I can actually get that for you, an exact number right now, actually. Give me 1 second, I will get that number for you.
And just to confirm, these are cases that law enforcement has referred to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's office refers them to RISE, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So let
And
me.
Jasmine, sorry, this is
Yeah,
Venus. If I can jump in really quickly while you're looking for those numbers. Chief, to your question around the processing, it took us a little bit to really get the referrals going because of the protections around juveniles.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go through a process with the juvenile court to, we tried to get a blanket kind of waiver because we have to share police reports with RISE, right? We have to kind of turn over what would originally be deemed very private, sensitive information and not released publicly. And so every case, we literally have to get a petition signed by the judge in juvenile court to allow us to share the information with RISE. So it has, that process slowed us down from really launching things, I would say, for the first probably 3 or 4 months. So it took a little bit. We tried to get a universal waiver. The court wouldn't allow for it. So we have to do it for each individual case every time we want to refer one. So it slows the referral process down a little bit, but in general, referrals to from law enforcement to us have been, the numbers are decreasing. They're not extremely high numbers. So thus the referrals aren't, as high as maybe we thought they would have been, but that's okay. Obviously we don't need to, we don't need more kids in the system. But just to give perspective on the numbers, I just wanted to add that caveat.
Thank you, Venus. That's helpful. And then I know we talked about the higher level misdemeanors and lower level felonies. Are we talking about like stolen vehicles and maybe a simple battery or?
Has to be a live victim. So if it's just a property crime, doesn't get referred. So we're talking about robberies. We're talking about assaults, anything where there was a live person that was harmed in the commission of the offense, because restorative justice, based on all its research, has been deemed to really only work not when we're talking about a theft and no one was around, right? So, or a break-in of a store, right? And there was no one present or harmed. But as long as there is an actual live victim, then fitting with the rest of the criteria, then the case is referred.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, I have the
So
number.
it sounds like harm. When you say harmed, it has to be a physical injury of some kind, not a property or financial injury.
No, use of the word harm with restorative justice is a different word for victim, right? So we don't use victim and defendant. We use the person who was harmed during the commission of the offense. So it doesn't have to be a physical harm, but there does have to be a live person that did suffer harm.
Awesome, thanks, Venus. So I'm gonna give you all the numbers. So our first case we received was in January 2000, which was last year. So we have, as of that date, we have completed 3 cases. And right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I think it's 12, Jasmine.
11, 12. Yeah. Oh, you looked at it yesterday. We actually,
yes.
Yeah, you looked at it yesterday. We have 12. Yeah.
You were, I was like, what, these are my numbers from yesterday.
You do
The
have
12 referrals and 3 completions. I'm sorry, I didn't get.
Yes, 12. Yeah. So we have 12 cases that are currently in the prep phase, which means they're prepping for conference. And then we have 3 young people that have officially completed the program as of January, when we got our first referral, January 2020.
And we allow 9 months for the process to go through, Chief, just because, one, we need to make sure that we don't lose jurisdiction with the statute of limitations if for some reason the case ends up coming back to us. However, if there is no communication or contact between the DA's office and RISE, we're not a part of the process. We're not at the table. Once we send that police report over, it's all in RISE's hands. All we get told is that the youth has completed, or the youth is in process, or kind of whatever stage they're at. And it can take anywhere from 6 to 9 months for youth to complete the entire process. So just to give context for, what that looks like. And no youth, there's no punishment or any harsher consequences that a youth would receive if the case for some reason comes back to us. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you.
I have a question. Okay. So far as the facilitators and the staff, what about the training? What kind of training do they have? Or are they psychologists? Are they attorneys? Are they, can you go a little more detail about the facilitators and also just the staff who work with the youth here?
Yeah, we are all trained facilitators in restorative justice diversion. So we are trained by Impact Justice, and that was an intensive training that we attended for a week. It was like 8 hours of restorative justice training, and then also restorative justice diversion training, because those are 2 different things. Just because you know restorative justice doesn't mean that you can do the restorative justice diversion program and know the steps to completing a case. So it has been hours of training, more than 40 hours of training that all of us have received. So myself, and then Bree, who was another facilitator, trained in restorative justice and restorative justice diversion. Also, Stephanie makes sure that all of the staff are trained as much as possible in terms of restorative justice as well, which what we need for to successfully support our young people and our families.
So Mike, and hi everybody. I'm sorry I had to keep flipping on and off, but there's overlapping meetings. So we do a lot of training at RISE, and I think I missed some of Jasmine's presentation, but she talked a little bit about our integrative programming. So all of our staff has training in some type of restorative practices. Our restorative practices specialists have even more training in restorative practices. So we do nonviolent communication, as well as restorative justice training, as well as restorative justice training specific to diversion practices. As well, RISE has therapists on site that work with youth if that's one of the needs that they have. And we have other clinical specialists that can support young people for whatever needs they are. And so I'm not sure if Jasmine also talked a little bit about our Let's Get Free plan and the assessment that the young people go through, but part of that is to assess what are some of those specific needs that they may have in their whole life. So not just looking at what's going on with the particular case that they've been referred on, but looking at what are the different aspects in their lives that they need support with.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other questions for Jasmine?
I have one more.
Sure.
Are there any plans to expand the program beyond what it's already covering right now, or in, because I know it's kind of limited. I mean, you have your criteria for the selection process, but is there any plans to expand it or to develop a similar plan for other offenses?
I'll jump in really quickly. This is Venus again. Yes, there are plans to expand it. The goal and how we approach the work was very data driven. We wanted to do a survey of the county to see where the greatest disparities were that we were seeing with youth. So it wasn't a random selection of those areas. It was very intentional. We originally had just started with really Richmond and, you know, kind of particularly obviously West County and we, you know, kept tracking the data and the numbers. One, because we wanted to see, you know, where do the kids live in relationship to where the offenses are occurring, right? Are we seeing kids committing offenses in their own communities, or are they traveling, you know, to different parts of the county? Who is being impacted? Again, you know, Black and Brown youth, girls and boys, what their ages were. So we really did our homework. We also got funded through the BSCC, about $1 million for 3 years to do the work. We definitely will continue. We will definitely expand as appropriate, because we don't want to net widen just for the sake of net widening, which is why the criteria of we're not just going to funnel, hi baby, we're not just going to funnel kids through this process if we wouldn't have charged the case, right? We don't need to just keep kids, again, being involved or becoming part of the justice system for the sake of this program. That's not the goal. So yes, I think as we continue to look at the data, reflect on the data, assess the program, Impact Justice is also they are also our technical advisors. And so as part of the grant, they will be putting together kind of a mid-year and an end-of-year report, because we're also tracking recidivism, right? We're also looking at, you know, are we not seeing these youth anymore, which is what we want, right? We don't want them coming back to us. We want them to go to RISE for the support they need, right? Before we even see them. The other thing that's really important as we look at the work and think about it, the DA's office gets all felonies, but probation really handles misdemeanors. And so we are going to be partnering with probation and bringing them to the table, because we want to make sure that youth aren't being missed, and kids who could take advantage of this opportunity instead of just being processed through probation also get to avail themselves of these opportunities as well, because there might be cases that we don't see or we miss. So trying to loop them in as part of the process as well. But we will continue to build out, and this should be a staple of the DA's office forever, in my opinion. It's not just an experiment. This is a new way of doing things.
Hey, Bisa, real quick, just on that point from probation, we just want to thank RISE and the DA's office for inviting us to the table and allowing us the opportunity to make referrals directly to the program. and really giving us another avenue of trying to keep young folks out of the system at the very beginning and stuff. And so just from Chief Eamon Krause, definitely appreciative of this opportunity that we have before us.
Thank you. Right, if there's no other questions or comments from committee members, I'll open it up for public comment. Any other public comment? Oh, Stephanie? You're on mute.
Yeah, okay. I'm wondering if this is something that what RISE or other entities there have looked to try to put into some of the public school systems, the whole restorative justice, to keep kids in school and not have them expelled.
I think almost all of the districts in the county are implementing some type of restorative practices. What exactly that's looking like at the various schools, I can't tell you, but there are some restorative justice programs that are happening at the schools. RISE doesn't run any of those. Our focus is specifically on the criminal legal side as far as this program. But there's other things around the county too, not just in the schools, but Family Justice Center also has a restorative justice program with some of the work that they're doing, their clients that they have. So, I mean, it's happening in different spaces.
Thank you.
I had a question regarding expanding the diversion programs for Ms. Johnson, because Ms. Johnson, you said that there are plans to expand with regard to the types of violations the individual commits. Is there also plans in the works to expand with regard to age, because the abundant neurological studies that are proving that there's this class of citizens called emergent adults who do not have fully formed frontal lobe cortexes and make rash decisions, and therefore they are deserving of some second chances?
As far as the types of offenses, we have not, in my description of the expansion, it was more so geographically, not as far as the types of offenses. So I just wanted to make that clear. As far as the age, I think we are always looking at, things nationwide, other programs, other possibilities, obviously, to do the work. But this program specifically, and the work and how we came to it, was specifically geared to youth. And so that's where we started. Not to say we won't be doing other things in the future. I couldn't say what those things would look like. But this is our kind of first step into restorative justice in the history of the DA's office. So that's where we are now.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no further comments. We'll move on. Thank you so much, Jasmine and Stephanie and Rise, for your presentation. All right, the next item on our agenda is to approve presenting diversion subcommittee's definition of diversion and guidelines to JJCC. Chris, I assume you're going to take this? No? Oh, I see your eyes getting big.
Yeah, I don't recall. So I know that we've been talking about what I specifically remember is I think Jill was here in a prior meeting. After the guidelines sort of were going to the quarterly body, she mentioned, because we were talking about how do we give them force, right? So we want these guidelines that you guys took several meetings to develop to mean something in the county. And so I specifically recall her saying directly to me, like in the meeting, like, Chris, maybe you should go to the PPC with these guidelines. And I was like, okay, PPC, I've been there before. Like, I could do that. I don't have an issue with that. And that was what I recall. It was and I'm not trying to put her on the spot either, but Nicole, who brought to my attention that also during that meeting, we talked about potentially presenting these guidelines to the JJCC because they should be doing some similar work. So I know that there usually is some overlap between RJOB and JJCC. There may be someone in this meeting who would be at the particular JJCC meeting. I know they have subcommittees as well where this might be living right now. You know, that would be a great person to present it. I'm not opposed to, you know, going depending on, you know, when it would be scheduled, but just sort of sharing with them specifically the guidelines that you guys came up with and why, right? Because it's not necessarily that they have to adopt specifically everything that you say, but at least the spirit of what you're trying to get at or what you're trying to protect against, right? Like they probably need that information as they develop something similar. So I think that is, to the best of my ability, what I can speak to on that item. And I would welcome any further comment from anyone else who can help out with that.
So I think for the general public that's in the meeting, and maybe for those that don't know what JJCC means, it will be helpful to explain that.
Is it Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council? Is that it usually is all over the country, but sometimes it could be different. That's why I asked. But yeah, so it's a body, right? So this body, the Racial Justice Oversight Body, is built for looking at both youth and adult populations and how we improve upon racial equity in, you know, systems that impact both populations. The Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council is a similar body, but it is focused specifically on youth justice, right? So having a lot of the same aims, but in a more specific sort of subject matter area of youth. And they have a number of subcommittees. I think they're pretty closely aligned. I don't recall what all of the subcommittees are, but I think the purpose of them and even to some degree how they're named are, you know, they sort of correspond to what we have going on here. So the point is not to duplicate efforts. I mean, to some degree, it seems kind of inevitable to be doing that, but the point is to try to coordinate as much as we can to hopefully help each other to move things in the right direction as opposed to competing or doing the same thing or wasting anyone's time. And so this is why, in the spirit of that, that stated goal, right, sharing with them work that we've already sort of done and that the body has already approved and that we're trying to give legs to or strength or force to within the county seems like a really good way to go.
Thank you. So I guess it says approve, and so I would entertain a motion to approve Chris going to the JJCC to talk about the definition that we worked very hard over several months to complete and present that information to the JJCC. Anybody want to make a motion for that? Robin? Yes. Thank you. Anyone want a second? All right, Michael. Thank you. Yes.
Kira?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Kamisha?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And Stephanie?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. That was easy.
I really appreciate the specificity of that motion. I just want to say that. Is there anybody that has information in terms of like what specific meeting? Again, I know they have multiple subcommittees. So Just trying to get a handle on what meeting that might be or when it might be, if anybody happens to have that information. If not, certainly we can find out. But if there's anyone here who's already aware of probably the best meeting or the best time and space for that, I'd love to hear it.
Chris?
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
You know, Chris, I think part of it would be to better understand what the purpose of it is. Is it just an information share? Is it something that we're looking for the JJCC to adopt? You know, what is the purpose of it? And, you know, maybe we might want to start with their, I think they might have a diversion subcommittee. Melvin, do you know if there's a diversion subcommittee in JJCC?
Well, it's the prevention intervention.
Okay, so it's the PICE. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, their focus is more, we decided to focus more on the front end rather than diversion specific practices.
So as I recall, Chris, from the earlier meetings, you did a great job of outlining the historical perspective. But my understanding too was that Jill was really looking for this to be really fully embraced, that it get adopted at PPC Board of Supervisors kind of level. And so I think part of the discussion, as I recall, was what is the purpose of that? What are the consequences of it? And, you know, what are those steps in doing that? And if we're going to go and seek approval from the board for a definition like this, then it certainly makes sense for us to collaborate with the JJCC. But is that what we want to do? Is that still the goal here? And I think that would make sense in determining which JJCC body we would go to. And maybe we just go to the full body. Stephanie, what do you think sorry, don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know that you're a key player with the JJCC, and so you're my go-to gal here.
I mean, it may be good to just go to the full body. I know that, Chris, you've had some conversations with RDA, and specifically, I think, regarding PICE, but I think it would be good maybe for the whole body to hear a little bit about what's been going on with our job in this committee.
And does the body meet, like I'm not clear on JJCC meeting frequency and whatnot, so.
I'm so confused because there's so many meetings right now. I don't even know. They may be, I can't remember if they're monthly or quarter. I think they may be monthly.
Wow.
I'm looking it up right now, so I'll be right back.
Are they monthly, Melvin?
I think the full body is every other month right now, if not.
Okay.
I think the chief might be in her office.
Yeah, just trying to get a handle on.
I have May.
June 9th is the next meeting I have.
For the whole committee or just the diversion? I mean,
for the full JJCC meeting. The full body is June 9th.
And that would be every other month, because the last one we just had last week, I think.
Right. And my apologies, go ahead.
No, I was just looking at the calendar and confirming that June looks about right.
June 9th.
Because Tamisha, you're also co-chair of PICE. What do you think? Would it be good to present at that meeting or at the full committee meeting?
I think it was our subcommittee that came up with a definition, and then we proposed it to the larger JJCC and then didn't the larger JJCC vote on it?
I believe so.
So if this subcommittee have a definition of diversion, I think we already adopted a definition of diversion, and we wanted the county to adopt that same definition as well. Wasn't that our last conversation?
Yeah, well, that definition focused more because they were looking at the different tiers.
Prevention. though,
Yeah, and
wasn't it?
so it focused more on prevention and intervention and left it open as far as the diversion. So, I mean, I think that both of those definitions complement each other. So that's why I was thinking maybe it would be good just for the full body.
I agree.
All right. Yeah, that sounds fine to me. I'm happy to work with or reach out to whoever I need to get on the agenda for June 9th to, present all of the, great work that you all have done with not only the definition, right, but the guidelines that support it. I think that was a really great way to go in terms of you being able to spell out, your vision for what diversion should look like and function like, and also, of course, to talk about why. That's not a problem.
Thank you, Chris. So that takes us to the last portion of our meeting to adjourn. Our next meeting is May 20th. We talked about the documents that need to be in prior to that meeting, and so they need to be in by the 12th.
Is that right, Nicole? It's the 12th. It is about 8 days. You're on mute.
The Thursday before the meeting by noon, I think that's the 13th.
Okay.
So the 12th will probably be the best, so you could get all the packet together.
Yeah.
Hey,
That'd
Chief
be great.
French,
Yes.
I wanted to mention something real quick. I did watch the video from the last meeting in February, and I noticed that there were a few juvenile programs that you were the group was unsure of where they came from or what they were. And I went ahead and wrote those down and made sure I knew what they were about. I'm unsure if this is the time to bring that up as to what those might be in case you want to bring them in as part of this presentation process.
That would be helpful.
Okay. So one of the programs you mentioned that the group is we didn't have any probation representation at the last meeting. And I think that's why no one knew where they were from, because they would have come from us. So the first program mentioned was VORP, which is an acronym that stands for Victim Offender Reconciliation Program. And Chief French, you did provide the definition and goal of what that program does. It is very, very similar to what we just listened to from RISE, but it's a program that our East and West County juvenile divisions use, and primarily for misdemeanor referrals, intake referrals that we receive from law enforcement agencies. So we could probably get a representative from them if you want to hear from them. But again, it's very similar to what RISE and the DA's office are doing. So maybe we could talk about that. The other program mentioned was the COPE Family Support Center, which again, COPE is an acronym for Counseling Options and Parent Education. They are formerly in Concord, but currently are in Walnut Creek, but serve all areas of the county. They offer a plethora of counseling services, from individual to marital to co-parenting, teen and child counseling, family counseling, anger management, youth mentoring. And then their big thing is their Triple P parenting program, which stands for Positive Parenting Program. They also have drug education for teens and supporting father involvement. And they have classes, they've got counseling. Much of it is online right now. Some of it does have a fee to it, but I believe, and I would have to double check, but if the child is on probation or referred by probation, somehow those fees are waived. The executive director and founder is Kathy Botello, and that's BOTELLO. And their website is copefamilysupport.org. And then lastly, the other one mentioned that we were unsure where it may have came from is the Mount Diablo Adult Education campus. And every year the probation department receives flyers from this group offering various classes. And the ones that we tend to use are the Parent-Teen Anger Management class, a Parent-Teen Drug Alcohol Vaping workshop, and then also parenting classes. And those come in both English and Spanish, and they're free for Mount Diablo School District residents, but $8 a class if they are not. And those are a series of classes, like a weekly class for a number of weeks. So that's what those were about too. And they are still ongoing as well, but I believe online Zoom virtual classes. So those are the three that you didn't have an understanding of where they may have came from or what they were.
Thank you, Kara. And those are specifically all referred as diversion programs for people through probation.
You can be on probation. The referrals can come from probation, but they absolutely don't have to. I know with Cope Family Support Center, any family, a school could refer the family to Cope. I know Cope is frequently in the school district. They participate in SARB hearings. They're highly utilized for, non-probation folk.
So I guess
But FORP is specific to probation.
Okay.
Actually, Chief, I spoke with Kathy Botello in follow-up to our last meeting, as I was the only probation representative here that week or that month. And my understanding, and Kara, please share with me if I misunderstood this, but COPE gets referred to, or youth get referred to COPE through the schools, through COE in the hall, as I understand it. So Becky Vashiki's department would send youth there. COPE does not have a current contract, though, with probation youth, is my understanding. And so when I had also asked about any kind of data that they would be willing to share or could share with the committee surrounding their services and outcomes, things along those lines. And I have not received that yet, but I have gone in that direction. So it sounded to me like they were certainly interested in learning more and providing additional services if that was an opportunity for them.
Okay. So I think that we probably have our hands full with presenters for the next meeting, so we'll consider bringing them along for future meetings. All right. Anything else good for the order? I see you, Cheryl. We haven't heard you today, but we see you. Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else.
It's Ramadan. I'm promising to be good.
Oh, good. All right, then I think we can adjourn the meeting.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.